Welcome to Indiana Sports Beat Radio, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Know your role and shut your mouth, you jabroni!
Fires upfield into the end zone. It is caught. Jelani Woods, touchdown! ISB.
Yes.
43-point night for Tyrese Halliburton.
How do you like that, partner?
Renew now, drives in low, throws up a shot. It doesn't go. Tipped up and in by Anthony Leal. Indiana takes the lead.
It's pretty simple. I win. Google me.
Now, here's your host, Jim Coyle.
Hey, welcome aboard. It is Monday and time to get your week started. Thank you so much for joining us here at Indiana Sports Beat Radio, brought to you by and powered by Andy Moore Honda. Get more to your door with AndyMooreHonda.com and the best in new and used vehicles, as well as the Autograph app, where real fans get unreal rewards. The first app to track and reward fans for loving what they love most, turning passion into access and experiences. Download the Autograph app in either the Apple App Store or Google Play today. Autograph, where unhinged fandom meets unreal rewards, or use the ISB media code to make that even better. Joining us now, Greg Rakestraw, as usual, from the ISC Sports Network. And Greg, yesterday kicked off a busy week for the All-Stars. It's All-Star week, and the juniors took on the juniors. The Indiana juniors took on Kentucky's juniors, and it was a usual, what I call usual, successful sweep for the folks on the northern side of the Ohio River as the girls dominate Kentucky. And they went big. What was that? 117-76 on 52.5% shooting from the field, behind some not bad shooting from Maya Makaluski of Hamilton Southeastern. Man, what a 2 minutes and 11 seconds she had. Drilling.
Yeah, she made 4 straight threes in the second half. And I've had the pleasure of watching her play the last couple of years, and obviously we'll see her again next year. Her older sister plays at Butler. When they were together at HSE as sophomore and senior, not this past year, but the year before, they were referred to as the Splash Sisters. Mom played collegially at Villanova. Riley's about 6 foot. Maya's 6'2", 6'3". Maya's going to play for Terry Morin at Indiana University. And when she gets going, she got going. And so the girls and boys were both pretty sizable margins. And I think the junior class getting into a senior class now is pretty special in the state of Indiana. And probably just because we talk more about the boys game, that's been kind of known of this group of the, Sisley, Mullins, Briscoe, Zachary, kind of group. But the girls may have a similar situation where, kind of like the boys, where there are 3 or 4 really good, legitimate Mr. Basketball candidates in the senior class to be. You would say the same thing about the girls' class and Maya Makaluski. Well, I would probably argue that I thought Jayla Lampley was probably a better overall and all-around player in yesterday's game. One of the 2 Lampley sisters that led Lawrence Central to the 4A state championship. Again, what Maya did in short order in the second half of that game was pretty attention-grabbing.
Yeah, she had 23 points overall in the game. So she was right there behind Makaluski as far as scoring leader. And then, of course, I think 19 points for Meredith Tipner. Yep. So this was not a one-woman wrecking crew. I mean, like you said, they're talented around the horn.
And so the way that this works is that for the junior all-stars, they play twice. So there's the game against Kentucky, then there's the game against Indiana. And that game is at Kokomo on Wednesday, the Flory Badunga send-off game at Memorial Gymnasium. And so there is a core 6. So on the girls' side, those 5 players started, and then one of them, the 3-point shooter in Winchester that's going to go play at Ball State for Warsaw, she was the first player to come off the bench. But the names that we have already mentioned, Tipner, Makaluski, Lampley, Monique Mitchell of South Bend, Washington was a part of that group. Addie Baxter, who is a tremendous player at Columbia City. She's already verbal to play at Butler, and I think she's probably the starting point guard, maybe even in day one for Austin at Butler, coming up a year from now. It is a very talented group, and I think, again, probably 3 or 4 of those players legitimately have a chance, to be on a Miss Basketball candidate. And again, you'd say the same thing about the boys. And I know that a lot of the results seemingly have been one-sided in terms of Indiana versus Kentucky. I don't think that's going to be the case on the senior game this year. And B, again, I don't think that's to bag on Kentucky in terms of yesterday's results. I think the 2 Indiana teams have that much talent on both the girls and the boys side this year.
Absolutely. We've been talking about, the boys, like you said, maybe way more than the girls, and maybe that wasn't fair, but it was because of the recruiting that's going on with that. But yeah, wow, what a solid effort. And the girls also have a winning record against Kentucky overall in the All-Star game. So it's not like that this is something they haven't been doing. But the fact that she's going, Makowski, to Indiana, that says a ton, because if you look at Indiana's roster, how many Indiana players are on that roster? One.
It's not been as many. Now, obviously, there are recruits from each of the last 2 years. So when you watch the seniors play, Wednesday in Kokomo, Friday in Lexington, Saturday night at Gainbridge Fieldhouse, Faith Wiseman of Indian Creek at 6'4" is going to play at IU. And so, I don't think you complain if you're an Indiana fan, given just how good they have become in women's basketball every year, that it's not been as, say, an Indiana-driven roster as, say, Purdue on the men's side, say it's Purdue on the women's side, which obviously has not found a way to equal their success of, say, a decade ago or more, when they were clearly the dominant basketball program from a women's basketball standpoint in this state. Terry Morin just found a way to win. Now, there's been the obvious, Indiana or close to, player, because Grace Berger's from not far away. Tyra Buss was from not far away. Allie Patberg, obviously born and bred an Indiana Hoosier, and Sydney Parrish coming home. So there have been notable Indiana natives on this team. But yes, in each of the next 2 years, there's a couple of key recruits for Terry Morin coming from this state.
Yeah, and like I said, that has not been the case, but that's because she's recruiting the best players she can have, which brings up a couple of points. But to make it into that lineup, that says you're special, because Terry Morin has shown that, hey, she knows what she's doing by bringing in the best players that work for her and the system, because they win. But it also says to me that while a lot of the Indiana fans that complain about not having enough Indiana guys, quote unquote, Indiana guys on the roster, there's not a lot of complaining about Indiana women, baby. It comes down to winning.
That complaint only happens when you're losing. Winning. That complaint goes away. Winning is the ultimate deodorant. Winning is the ultimate eraser. Nobody cares where you're from when you're winning.
I love that phrase, is the ultimate deodorant. I always say winning cures everything, but I like that one. I'm gonna have to steal that one from Greg. That's a pretty good one. This junior squad, man, not only are they loaded, but there's always guys that for the men that pop up. Julius Gizzy, is that how you say his name? Gizzy?
RG.
What's that?
RG, Julius Gizzy. So let me tell you his story. His story is pretty cool. So Julius had 27 points
on 10 of 11 shooting.
That's what Julius does. So it is a great basketball family. So grandpa was a high school basketball coach. Mom was the leading scorer in the history of New Pal girls basketball. Mom and then dad played at LaSalle in the early 90s. Dad played professionally overseas. So the 3 kids all have Italian first names. So the kids are Maximus, Isabella, and Julius. Max may have one more year left because of the COVID year. He just completed his 4th year at Marian University. Older sister Izzy just completed her freshman year at St. Francis. Julius was as a sophomore, was a part of the team, and the Stevens kid that was the walk-on at Indiana this year was kind of their leading scorer on the group last spring that won a sectional. Well, this year, with a very young team around him, Julius committed a lot more to fitness, dropped about 45 pounds, and I'm not sure I've ever seen a jump like this, Jim. He went from 9 points a game to 30 points a game for New Pal. And New Pal won that sectional. They beat Greenfield Central. Braylon Mullins was banged up in that game, so that deserves a mention. But New Pal has now started winning sectionals on a regular basis. And what is also unique, and it's reflected on the Indiana Junior All-Stars, is that New Pal, Cathedral, and Addicts were all in those 20 schools that were on the lower end of 4A that now go to 3A. And basically, those 3 teams would have easily been top 10 teams in 4A this year. That's not the case. 3A is now ridiculously loaded, again, because of the change in enrollment policy and shrinking 4A to what is now the top 81 schools and having 20% of the school population become 4A, and now 30% on the bottom end that will be in 1A. So Gizzy's a heck of a player, and again, Gizzy has grown up around the game of basketball, and he is not in the core 6 just because, again, it's a ridiculously junior group, but I do think he's going to be in the top 10, top 12. I think he'll be an Indiana All-Star a year from now.
Now, did Mark Zachary play in this game?
Mark Zachary did play in this game. Mark Zachary is one of 2 potential football players that may or may not play college basketball that would be Indiana All-Stars next year, because John Anthony Hall did as well from the state champs at Fishers. And John Anthony actually is a 3-sport kid, and what a weekend for him. So he competes on Saturday in the long jump championship in Bloomington in the state track and field finals. Then on Sunday, he's playing basketball for the Indiana Junior All-Stars, and he might not do either of those sports in college because he is a true 3-sport kid. He is a wide receiver and a very highly thought of wide receiver. Mark Zachary's probably a slightly higher level football recruit, and we've been talking about this in the Indy area for the last couple of years. It is thought he is a Division I basketball player, no doubt. It is thought he is an NFL defensive back. He plays both wide receiver and corner, but it just kind of, those that know better than me seem to think that cornerback or maybe even free safety, because of his wingspan and range and intelligence, that could be where he ends up at the next level. He was able to play football at Notre Dame. And again, because of the Indianapolis ties on the Notre Dame basketball staff, now the question all of us are wondering, is he going to play basketball at Notre Dame as well? And I clearly think there would be space for him on that roster if the football staff would allow him to play basketball. And I'll find out more as we get closer, because I'll see Mark a lot during the year in both football and basketball. But I do think there's a good chance, Jim, he's a 2-sport athlete at Notre Dame.
And I guarantee you that Micah Shrewsbury is really, really – he's over there talking.
Oh yeah, and let's face it, it's a free player for him. You just got a bonus scholarship player because football is going to pay the way for that young man. And he's also a bright kid and a really good kid. He's going to do well at Notre Dame, both on the field and academically. And
he may end up being a starter for that team. That would be very ironic. You just don't see that very often anymore, period.
Right.
You had a couple of guys in Indiana that did it. You go back to Cam Cameron, Antoine Randall L, guys that had super but athletic ability, but most coaches don't want them doing the other, unfortunately, because of they want you to focus on your sport.
Well, let me give you a couple of examples. The ultimate example of that in more modern times is Julius Peppers. Obviously, Julius, a Hall of Fame level defensive end in the National Football League. He played a lot. He was a small forward at 6'5", 6'6" at North Carolina, and really was a difference maker. It's almost, I think, given the time he would miss because of the football season, I'm not sure Mark would be a starter at Notre Dame, but could you see him being like a 6th or 7th man? And especially a guy where you say, hey, just go guard that guy, and we'll figure it out. He does play point guard at Ben Davis. And let's also kind of bring it back to more modern times. This Indiana junior team, got to remember, Mullins, Briscoe, Sisley, Zachary have all been playing for Indiana Elite together this spring, and they were torching people during the first half of the AU circuits. Those guys all know how to play each other very well. The other example I'll give you from Notre Dame, and I think it's about to end, but Notre Dame has had a few two-sport kids currently, one of them including Drake Bowen from Andrean High School, that has been primarily football and maybe to a secondary degree baseball, did not get many reps in baseball this year. So his baseball days might be coming to an end at Notre Dame, but this is something they have at least entertained very recently with a higher-end athlete from the state of Indiana.
And what about Mullins? How was we almost forgot all about him? No,
Sure.
Not really, but
By Braylon standards, it was kind of a quiet game with the exception of the first 30 seconds. Again, I cite the fact that the Indiana kids play together. And so the Indiana All-Stars had a set play off the tip-off, and Braylon Mullins dunked the ball 3 seconds into the game.
And he's a guard, people. He's a guard. He's not your forward. He's not a center. He's a guard.
He's 6'5", 6'6", and it was tip pass. Braylon dunks it. Then Braylon comes down and pulls up, hits a 23-footer. Second trip down, he has 5 points 30 seconds into the game. He kind of cooled after that point, but Braylon has been offered by pretty much everybody but the Washington Wizards over the course of the last month. His recruiting has blown up. He averaged just shy of 30 points a game at Greenfield Central this year. He has been tremendous. They will play in the Hall of Fame Classic this year. In fact, he and Trent Sisley's Heritage Hills team, they will play each other in one of the morning games on December 28th of that. But Braylon is becoming now the highest rated recruit in the state of Indiana.
Right now, he's behind Jalen Mullins. I guess, or not Jalen Mullins, Jalen Harrelson, but
Jalen plays in the state of Indiana. He's not a high school player in the state of Indiana.
Yeah, I know. Greg does not sway from that point. No doubt about that.
He lives in Washington, D.C. He's from Indiana. He's not really playing in the state of Indiana.
But yeah, how long has it been since you've seen someone's recruiting explode like Braylon Mullins has? I mean, it is just skyrocketed over the course of the 3 SSB circuit season.
Sure. And frankly, I do not follow that as much as you do, just to be blunt. A Jeff Rabjohns give you a good comparison on something like that. Again, it has taken off. But again, I also put, Indiana, Purdue, and Notre Dame have been all over this kid. And do they put a little more stock in the fact that he's local? Sure. But at the same time, if all those 3 schools say we want this kid, then there's no reason why the Missouris, Kansases, Dukes, North Carolinas, Michigan, Alabama, etc., won't say the exact same thing. And so what you really have now, because of the change in the transfer portal, is I think that if you're a top 50 to a top 100 kid, I don't think your recruiting has changed all that much. I think it's to the kids then after that where all of a sudden there's a lot less national interest because those larger programs trying to get maybe 1 or 2 key pieces, but the rest they are going to be saving seats on the bus for, players that, are going to be, already have college experience and trying to get the best player in the Mid-American Conference or the Missouri Valley Conference or even the A-10 to kind of make a jump to the SEC, Big 10, Big 12, et cetera. But for a player like Mullins, I think everybody is in on him and so many others with the hope, hey, if you get 1 or 2 top-end freshmen every year and sprinkle the rest with experienced veterans, that's a pretty good way to win.
Greg, let's see. I was going to say, you guys got a lot of coming up here with this week being All-Star Week.
I do. So I got the Futures game tonight at Hamilton Southeastern. That was played at Gamebridge last year. That's not the case this year. These are the top freshmen and sophomores from the previous year in the state of Indiana, North versus South. Wednesday night, we'll have the game in Kokomo. Friday is the game in Lexington. We will not be broadcasting that. Kentucky has their own streaming service for that this year. So I'll get to save a little gas mileage and not go to the eastern third of Kentucky, but I will be at Gamebridge on Saturday night for the finale of the World Series of Basketball for 2024.
Just the last thing, Wednesday nights, juniors versus the seniors. What are you expecting in that?
I'm expecting 2 really good games. And again, from the senior boys standpoint, this has been talked about. This class is down. And again, I think that's more of a compliment to just how ridiculously blessed we have been in terms of talent produced by this state over the course of the last really even 20 years. But after Flory and Jack, there is a noticeable drop-off once you get a little further down, the food chain. There's other Big Ten players, KJ Wyndham. Got a couple of kids that are going to walk onto the Big Ten in terms of Trey Buchanan and Aaron Fine. You've got Evan Haywood that's going to play at Butler. So there's other talented kids. But you see a smattering of more small college players on the team this year. That usually you'll see one, maybe two. Not the case with this group this time around. On the girls' side, you got to remember that this senior class, as a junior group last year, beat the senior All-Stars by 25 when they played at Cathedral. So this is a pretty good senior class too. So I think you're going to see two good games. And it's I'm sure these seniors have heard conversations like this one for the better part of the last 3 months. The senior group might be more fired up to play the Indiana juniors than they are to play Kentucky, because they've probably been hearing about the juniors potentially beating them on Wednesday night. So I expect a spirited game at Kokomo on Wednesday.
Looking forward to it. Greg Rakestraw from the ISC Sports Network. Make sure you stay tuned into that because he's going to be bringing you a lot of action this week. Greg, thank you very much.
You got it, Jim.
Up next, the Todd father, Todd Leary, joins us. We'll pick up with those conversations and more, brought to you by the Autograph app. Autograph, where real fans get unreal awards. First app to track reward fans for loving what they love most, turning a passion into access and experiences. Download the Autograph app today in either Apple app or Google Play stores. Make sure you use ISB media code. Back with the Todd father right after this.
We'll be right back for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
In the market. What up?
What's happening?
You know it. I guess it looks like it's a pretty good day out there now that the fog is lifted.
Oh, it's beautiful out.
It's beautiful. I can't believe how unbelievable this weather has been. I've had my doors and windows all open with some fans going for 2 weeks probably.
It's awesome. I know.
And I'm like, I cannot wait to see my electric bill. This is going to be a record low.
Yeah,
my HVAC has not run in over 2 months.
Yeah. It may not have to the rest of the week either. Today and tomorrow might be the hottest days.
Even when it was cold, I had that thing set on like 62. I'm like, you got to get down there to come on for me, man. I'm
right.
I don't know why, but I just became a miser with that thing.
Because it's expensive.
Yeah. Well, that, and I remember as a kid, your mom's always cold. And then my dad was always, boy, Did you leave that light on? Better get your ass back in here and shut that off. And so I swear, though, that I had that beat into my head, and I do not leave lights on. Boom. If I'm leaving the room, that light goes out. It's a funny habit, but a good habit.
Good one. Energy.
Buffalo Bill says hello. Bill Evans.
Buffalo Bill Evans.
You know, he's officially our longest listener.
Is he Birdseye?
No, down in Jeffersonville. Been listening since
I ask
the
you that every
Jeffersonville
time.
days.
Yeah, I ask you that every time. Who's Birdseye? Who's in Birdseye?
That's a good question. I don't
remember. Somebody used to always message us was in Birdseye.
It was probably just on the old radio station.
It was on the old radio station.
Did you all used to do the show live in Evansville?
No, we were all live in Louisville.
Right. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
It was always taped for Evansville, right?
Gotcha. Yeah, I thought for some reason you all moved to Evansville at one point. I mean, you live in that area, but
no, he lives here.
I live in Bloomington, but I used to live.
Oh, I thought you lived. Did you just work in that area?
Yeah,
he used to. Yes, okay. And he used to live in Evansville.
Right. Not for very long, but yeah.
All right, here we go, guys.
And don't forget, Bloomington is your one-stop shop for high-quality meats, bakery items, and And now, fresh seafood. Chop Shop Market and Table has the largest selection of in-house made products around and everything you need to make a gourmet meal at home. Or pick out a tomahawk steak or a grouper filet and enjoy it cooked to perfection in Chop Shop Steakhouse. Chop Shop Market and Table, a part of the Wild Food Group, is your butcher, baker, and fish house, no matter where you live.
This segment is brought to you by MyJumpShot.com. Welcome back to Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Hey, welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio on this Monday. Thank you so much for being with us and getting your week started off the right way. It is a beautiful Chamber of Commerce weather day. And to even brighten your day more, we've got the Todd father, Todd Leary, with us, brought to you by MyJumpShot.com. For all of you out there that have kids, I know there are tons of you that have kids that are playing basketball, no matter if they're in elementary school, junior high, high school, even into college. The Todd father works with all, does not discriminate. Even if you're an old man trying to play in these pickup leagues or the Y.
The not get hurt leagues. The don't get hurt leagues.
A lot of guys play in the big time money events as well, though. But you want to impress them, you need MyJumpShot.com. Man, you've worked with a lot of guys here, and a lot of notable people. Xavier Robinson from Lawrence North. You've worked with Trent Sisley, who's obviously he was already doing well. But I try. This is not to just give you a bump, but his game seems to improved here of late. He has been scoring more, which not that he wasn't already doing wonderfully, he was, but it just continue when you can always add something to your game that's a little noticeable. He scores in the All-Star game yesterday, 20 total points, but 15 of those come in the second half. That's huge.
Yeah, and look, any success that kid has is because of his hard work. Like, I'm just a beneficiary of being able to work with him. He had a couple of little things to kind of clean up more than anything about his jump shot, but he's just a talented player that he's just going to continue to get better and better and better. I think you hear this from a lot of people, but he's just scratching the surface. Like, he's learning the game. He's learning how to use his body and do different things. The thing about him, I think, that is underrated is the fact that he can score in a bunch of different ways. I think you hear the analysts talk about it a lot and say at all three levels. But, I mean, he's got a good-looking jump shot. He can score getting to the basket. His mid-range game is really good. His post-up game, his turnaround fadeaway game is good. I heard you talking a few minutes ago to Rakestraw about, Braylon Mullins recruiting blowing up and all that. And I would say Braylon Mullins was probably underrated a year ago. And Trent Sisley has been pretty highly regarded, I think, for several years now. And so I don't think that Sisley's recruiting has leveled off any. I think other guys are just starting to get some attention now, Braylon Mullins especially, and it's well deserved. Like, he's had a fantastic summer. But Sisley is a guy that he's not a role player guy that's gonna, just fill the stat sheet on some different things. He's a difference maker in a program, and he's gonna be one of those guys that makes whatever team he goes to a lot better, and that's a great thing to be described as.
Yeah, he's a guy that's I think is going to I hate to use the word sneaky, but when he gets onto a team, it's nice pickup, but then all of a sudden he's going to be one of those guys that just improves every year and gets better and better at all he does. And you said a key thing. He can score from a myriad of places. He can step out, shoot the three. He can go inside, bang in the paint. He can make some moves to the rim. He is a toolbox in essence.
Yeah, he is. He likes the contact. That's a good thing to be described as. he's just a player. I'll tell you the thing I think about him that is sneaky and underrated is his athletic ability. I kind of thought he might be, I hope this doesn't come across negative. His brother was more of a bigger, banger, physical player.
And he had the all-time rebounding record at Heritage High. Trent ended up breaking that record already.
Yeah, and Trent's more athletic, little faster, shiftier with his body, I think, than his brother was. And so I think some people maybe overlook his athletic ability because he's a Sicily. He's related to Blake. And so they maybe think he's more of a banger. And I hope that doesn't come across negative as Blake, because Blake was coach. I tell Mr. Sicily all the time, Coach Knight would have loved Blake Sicily because his big wide shoulders, he would have been the all-time leading screener at Indiana.
Well, he was the all-time leading rebounder, like I said, at Heritage Hills.
Yeah.
And Trent broke that record last year with a year to go, people. And his brother Blake played at a few places and was actually offered to walk on at Indiana. Mike Woodson wanted him to play there, but he just decided he was done with that. But you heard us talking about Mark Zachary as well. I think he ends up at Notre Dame, maybe playing football, and hopefully they'll let him play basketball or wherever he goes. He's such an incredible athlete that, man, and he defensively and as a point guard, he's a wrecker. He wrecks things when he's out there.
Yeah, he's a game changer. I've watched that Indiana Elite team. I know I've told you on here several times. I've watched them play, and Mike Fox does a great job coaching that team. Those guys play so well together. And the tournaments that I've watched, Mark Zachary hasn't even started. Now that a lot of that has to do with he has other commitments. Maybe he's not at practice all the time, by all those things.
He joined late. He joined this team
and he's
late.
Definitely one of their best players from the standpoint. I don't mean that statistically. I mean that I think they play really, really well together. And their best basketball when he's on the floor. He you hear glue guy a lot on different descriptions of guys, but if you're going to describe a guy that makes everyone on the floor a little bit better, I think Sicily's a little better. I think Mullins is a little better. I think Malachi Moreno's a little bit better when Mark Zachary's on the floor with them. And that's because he's your great point guard that you have that's not looking for his own shot, but he's very capable of making shots and scoring on his own. And boy, when you're described as that as a point guard, there's a lot of different teams that are going to want you. And the incredible part about him being an athlete, they say he's a better football player than he is basketball player. I've never seen him play football. But I'll just say, he must be really, really good, because I know in basketball, he's really, really good.
Well, that tells you if he's so sought after as a DB, a cornerback is to me, it's one of the toughest positions in all of football. Quarterback is number one without a doubt because of all the thinking you have to do and recognition and that. But as a DB cornerback, you're on an island. Number one, you're out there by yourself. It's one-on-one. It's also something you have to be fast enough and quick enough to play the pass, but tough enough to play and smart enough to play the run. Yeah. It's just a thinking man's position. Point guard, he's obviously just a quick thinking, smart, quick athlete, and looking forward to seeing what he does, as well as the rest of the guys, Braylon Mullins and all those. I think they have a hell of a chance of winning that 3 SSB title down in Rock Hill, South Carolina this summer.
They really do. I mean, those games, they can start to go. AAU games can go a bad direction. Like, they get bad officiating, they can get something or whatever, but they're not going to be out talented by the teams that they play. And like I said before, numerous times on your show, they play better together than your average AAU team. Like, you can kind of tell they all kind of like each other and they enjoy playing. They're not necessarily out there to get statistics, even though that seems to be what we talk about a lot rather than the wins and losses with them. But but they're a different kind of team. They're as fun of a summer basketball team as you're going to find to watch play if you just enjoy good basketball. Like they're incredibly, exceptionally talented, but man, they play well together and they share the ball, and that's not things that are used to describe summer AAU teams very often.
Yeah, and of course Indiana and Purdue they're basically in a fight for Trent Sisley's services. He's being recruited by other people, but to me, this particular one is going to come down to Purdue and Indiana. He's just a kid that neither want to see leave the state. I'm sure his parents would like to see him stay in state as well, so they can watch the games a lot easier. But they have recruited. There's no one that has recruited him harder than Purdue and Indiana. So, and either of those are a good choice for Trent Sisley and his game. His game will translate into either place very, very well, and he will be welcomed by the fans of either of those programs.
Yeah, no question about that. Like he's, I say this a lot, and it goes back to last year when Liam McNeely decommitted from Indiana, and a lot of Indiana fans, kind of take that I don't want to say the wrong way. They take it personally, and I get it. Look, I'm an Indiana guy. I take it personally because I think Indiana is the greatest. Okay. So let's just put that there the way it is. But when you look at a guy like Liam McNeely, he's not from the state of Indiana. He's not probably planning on living in the state of Indiana after his basketball days are over. It doesn't mean the same thing to him playing for IU or Purdue the way that it would a kid that's from here. And that doesn't mean every kid that's from the state of Indiana has to go to IU or Purdue. It just means if you look at what it's going to be, are they going to be down the road, when they're 50 years old, introduced at the Indiana Basketball Hall of Fame, living in the state of Indiana? It means something a little different. And when you're from,
it's an opportunity of just something that not everybody else can get to enjoy.
And like I say this all the time because I'm fortunate enough to get to be on a lot of radio shows and a lot of talk shows and go to a lot of golf events and go to a lot of different things. And I'm always introduced at those things as Indiana All-Star, Indiana state champion, those things. And like, they can never take that away. Like, no matter what people try to say about you or try to do or whatever, like, I'm
state
Indiana
champion,
All-Star forever. Yeah. They can't take
champion,
my ring away.
I mean,
they can't take that stuff away. And being from the state of Indiana for the rest of your life, those Indiana All-Stars this week, those guys that are seniors, they're going to be introduced as Indiana All-Stars for the rest of their lives in the state of Indiana. Now you move off to Michigan or Texas or wherever it is, like, it's not as big a deal. They're probably not going to mention that you were an Indiana All-Star. But for the rest of your life in Indiana, they're going to.
And I know this is a little different, but no one has done that better than Damon Bailey. Of course, he's got a few more accolades, but I look at someone like Pat Graham down in Evansville, who has just still, I mean, it doesn't go away. Like you said, Indiana All-Star, boom, it's there for life. Yep. You're a state champion, boom, that's there for life. The NCAA, the threes you hit in the Duke game. I can't imagine how often you hear about it, because I know how often I hear about it.
Agreed.
So that is something that just doesn't go away.
And I've explained that, like, I've used that in, I don't want to call it a recruiting tool, but just to make athletes and recruits understand that it is a factor. It is a deal. If I lived in Texas or Florida, I very seldom, I think, would ever have someone bring up Jamal Meeks and the Duke game. And I'll say, like,
then
it's Monday.
Passed it to you.
It's Monday morning right now. I will guarantee you that at the end of this week, that will be brought up to me in the state of Indiana at least 2 or 3 times. Like, it happens every week. No matter, I'll be at a gas station and somebody will say something about it. And that's just the fun part. Like, I can't imagine what it's like for Damon Bailey or like Alan Henderson, someone who's 6'10" and all of that, who's cannot go unrecognized. I mean, I could throw my hat on and throw a hoodie on and and people are not. I don't look a whole lot different than everybody else that's in the gas station, but Alan Henderson can't do that. Like he's not going to be able to hide from people at his size, and he's recognizable in the career he had in the NBA. Like all of those things factor into it, and so yeah, that's why you say a guy like Sicily and Mullins and those guys. That's why Indiana and Purdue and Notre Dame and Butler have a little edge in recruiting when it comes to those in-state guys, but it's not the sole determining factor. It's not going to shock me if those guys do end up going to, Duke, Kansas, Kentucky, somewhere different. Like everybody is in this process for their own reasons and what they want out of it. And you got to make that determination and make that, I use a great example, Jim. You're not asking me this question, but this is a great example. Take Reed Shepherd last year from Kentucky. Now, is it not obvious that kid knew from the time he was 3 years old, if he had the opportunity, he was going to Kentucky because of his parent, his dad and all that, like they played at Kentucky. So that was written in stone. Had that guy gone to, how many Division I schools are there? 330, whatever there are. Had he gone to any of the other 330 schools in all of the country, he would have started and maybe been the leading scorer on the team. But he chose to go to, the legacy school that his family had gone to. And that was an extreme benefit for the University of Kentucky because, that kid's a great player and he didn't even start, and he's going to get drafted in the first round here later this month.
We've got to take a quick break. The Todd Father is with us, brought to you by Chop Shop, where you can, the home of your local butcher, baker, no matter what you need. They're located on South Walnut Street.
Walnut.
I keep always think
you
College and Walnut.
When you say Hoosier Hanks, and then when you
then I've got Walnut and College Avenue right in my head all the time. But just north of Bloomington High School South on South Walnut, your local meat shop, steakhouse, and caterer, no matter where you live. Stopped by there yesterday and picked up some incredible. Their meats are just
place is the best.
Stupid good,
absolutely the best.
How about some red velvet cheesecake? I picked up a piece of that yesterday. My gosh,
I had cream brulee cheesecake there.
I picked up both of those yesterday. Those are the two. I'm right with you, brother. Make sure you stop by and visit them. They're incredible. They're everything. You can stop in and have dinner and pick out your own steak if you like and have it made just the way you want it. We're back with more Indiana Sports Beat Radio, also brought to you by myjumpshot.com for those in need of some shooting doctor, the shot doctor. Someone gave the shot father. Someone said that last week.
That's a good one.
Shot father. Yeah, there we go.
Like
the shot father. Back with more Indiana Sports Beat Radio right after this.
We'll be right back for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
If you're looking for that's one you could use. The shot father.
I'm going to use that. That's a good one.
I forget. Dang it. I hate that I don't know where that came from. It wasn't me. I will not take credit for it, but it was a good one. I'm like, oh, that one's kind of good. I'm going to have to remember to tell Todd that one.
Hey, I got to roll. If you need me to fill any other segment during the week or whatever, let me know. Like I'm just driving most of the time.
Okay. But you got to go now?
I got to go right now, yeah.
No worries.
Wait on me to pick some up in here.
Not a problem, brother.
Cool. Thanks, man.
This will be a short segment anyway, Jimbo.
All right, thank you.
And then Dustin will come on at 9:40.
Perfect. We'll talk a little bit about Caitlin Clark.
I'm not gonna lie, I'm kind of sick of hearing about her at this point.
I'm not. It's not her that I'm sick of hearing about now. I'm sick of hearing the whining by all of these other players.
Yeah, that's true. I did notice that.
It's not just the whining. It's like a league-wide conspiracy to shut her down. And that's just effing petty jealousy amongst women.
Yeah, I agree with you there.
Is it Shinity? Carter, I don't know if that's how you say her first name, but on an inbound, I didn't see it, but on an inbounds play, basically just decked her, dropped her to the ground, and they call it a common foul in the game, which was stupid. But then the WNBA changed it to a flagrant 1. Not a flagrant 2, but a flagrant 1. And so that shows you that what are the officials doing? What are they thinking here? So they're also a part of it. And the WNBA needs superstars as much as they think that they might not. Let me tell you, they do. And it's like the Fever. You don't think that she could help the Fever if they work together? I'm not sure they're working together. I don't know what's going on there enough. I don't follow it quite enough, but I don't know that they're working together to allow her to help them.
All right, here we go.
RVs, CRVs, Honda Ridgelines, payment free for 90 days, or get 0.9% APR financing for 36 months on a 2023 Honda Ridgeline. Go to AndyMooreHonda.com and get more to your door.
This segment is brought to you by Remax Advanced Realty, Indie Home Pros team by Cheryl Sizemore. Welcome back to Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Hey, welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio on this Monday, getting your week started off right. Just finished up with the Shot Father. That's a good new name. I was talking about in the break. I don't talk about the WNBA much, but Caitlin Clark has become just a lightning rod in that league. And I kind of laugh because, well, I don't laugh, but, as much as they may not think that they do, they still need all of the positive publicity they can get if they want to continue to drive home a product that people want to watch and go see. And the continued petty infighting is really starting to amaze me. And I've never been a Caitlin Clark apologist at all, but it is just becoming, I think, ridiculous. And it's what seems like a total league-wide petty jealousy of a player because she received an unbelievable amount of attention coming into the league. Well, she's gotten them all charter flights now because of her. And I guarantee you nobody wants to give her credit for that in the league, but they're certainly not going to be complaining about getting on a charter flight as opposed to commercial flying anymore. And I think that in and of itself is enough to just chill. But there was an incident the other day in a game. Chinity Carter, if that's how you pronounce her first name, for the Chicago Fire that Angel Reese plays for, on an inbounds play, just drops Caitlin Clark to the ground with either a hip check or a shoulder check. And it was called a common foul by the officials on the court, which just either yesterday, whatever, the WNBA changed that to a flagrant 1, not a flagrant 2. That's a gigantic jump. And it shows you that also the officials are not in tune to what the hell's going on. I don't know if the Fever are working in concert with her. I'm not saying that she's the greatest player in the history of the world. It's not the point. It's you have an opportunity to gain something here, and they are doing everything to step it down. No one from the Chicago Sky would answer questions about Caitlin Clark. They always say, nope, not answering any questions revolving Caitlin Clark. Angel Reese did not make herself available to the media after cheering on that play after that game, and was fined subsequently for not making herself available. And I've never seen anything like this before that I can recall. Five Left says that the WNBA doesn't need everyone focusing on one player. Nobody's saying that. I didn't say that at all. What I said, at least, is it should be allowed to be a part of a positive thing. Whether that's the Fever working with their star to learn the game, to get better. It's like Mackenzie Mbako for Indiana last year. The expectations were that he was going to come in and be this all-star player, a one-and-done type player, and that's hard. Doesn't happen to every player. But what you did see was Mackenzie Mbako at the end of the year becoming that player that people thought that he was going to be when he came. Well, it took a year or a season to grasp the college game. It's different. It's faster. It's harder. It's everything a level up, maybe 2 levels up. And it's the same with Caitlin Clark. This is not college. She's not playing against teams that have much of a drop-off. They all have professional players on those teams. But I really don't get the absolute. It's like every team has a bullseye set on Caitlin Clark, and not because they need to shut her down. It's just the point of trying to shut her down and to try and make a point, which I don't get. Someone making a comment here that I put up a minute ago, that it's stupid to kill the cash cow, jealous women. And I'm not saying she's the cash cow at this moment, but you know what? She could be one of the things, if allowed to be, her and Angel Reese and whomever. There has to be Diana Taurasi is not going to be there forever. Sue Bird not going to be there forever. All these, you've got Sabrina Ionescu, who's an absolute superstar. But these are not going to be there forever. You need to continue to bring in freshness, a new wave, and work that together. I just, like I said, we don't talk a ton about the WNBA, but that has been blowing my mind about that. John, is it time for a break?
Yes, sir.
That didn't take long. We've got our buddy Dustin Dopirak coming up next. Also, we've got to talk about some IU baseball as their season comes to an end. The All-Star Week continues. We'll talk more about that. The NCAA and this is set to reach another agreement on a different settlement that they're working on. And kind of a sad note, or a very sad note, for those in the southern Indiana area of Lanesville and Tell City, Kyle James, who was just a big IU fan, was unfortunately killed in a single automobile accident a few days back last week, along with 2 of his sons that go to Lanesville High School. And so we want to give a mention to them and let them know that we're thinking about their family and friends, and just hate to hear that news, and hope everyone that knows them reach out and are there for them. But we've got more coming up here on Indiana Sports Beat Radio, brought to you by Cheryl Sizemore and Remax Realty. For those in the market for a home in the Indianapolis area, reach out to Cheryl at IndyHomePros.com. Back with more Indiana Sports Beat Radio right after this.
We'll be right back for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
in the market.
All right. Dustin should be on momentarily.
I concur with the opinion and think
There
it
he
is
is.
above.
Good morning, Mr. Dopirak.
Good morning, Mr. Alden. We did say 9:40 now. I'm
Yes,
good with
sir.
this.
Just because of Todd being on before. Todd Leary.
That's fine.
How are you, sir? What
I'm
we got?
doing well.
What we got
Just
going
myself.
there?
What's
what
up?
we got on there? What's the T-shirt? What we got that?
Motion City Soundtrack. It's a band. Is that Hank Williams? Is that what we're looking at there?
Actually,
Hoosier Hank.
No. That's actually Hoosier Hank, but it is. I believe that is Johnny Cash.
Interesting. Okay.
With,
pretty cool.
All right.
With Hoosier Hank's head on it. With Hoosier Hank as a bison.
I see. That's confusing. Not gonna lie.
It is.
We're yeah. Well, we're like working different country outlaws in, and it's like, okay, well,
it is kind of crazy. I don't understand why they didn't get a picture of Hank Williams and do that. As a matter of fact, I'm going to suggest that.
Maybe Hoosier Hank likes Johnny Cash more. It's altogether possible.
Well,
you certainly have that opinion.
It's a cool looking photo, I got to tell you.
It is. It's a cool looking photo. I'm not gonna lie.
I love that photo, but
sure. Yeah,
Hank Williams would probably make more sense. Even Hank Jr.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I don't imagine Hank the First had a lot of merch. So it's not like he's got there's not like an iconic Hank one.
He's one of the most amazing people in the history of any genre of music. He died at 29.
That's crazy.
The number of songs that he wrote numbers over 700.
That's incredible. That's wow.
The number one hits that he had, it mind-boggling. It's just crazy. And I know it was a different time and different era, but
sure,
man, yeah, it's crazy. Crazy. Great. If you enjoy country music and you have not seen the country music deal by Ken Burns on PBS,
I do want to watch that.
That is awesome. I thought I knew so much about country music because I grew up having it pounded in my head by my dad, and I hated it at the time. Learned to love it. Learned to love it later.
Right.
But I love it. I mean, I've watched that thing multiple times and could sit there and watch it again. It's such a. It's
All right, here we go, guys. 10 seconds.
Okay. Sure.
30919 or go to mystonecrestliving.com. That's mystonecrestliving.com for more details. This segment is brought to you by Freethink Apparel. Welcome back to Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Oh, welcome back on this Monday. As a matter of fact, the beginning of June as well. It's not the first, but it might as well be for us. June 3rd. We're already into June. Man, I don't want to end up on Jimmy Kimmel. Can you believe it's June? I saw not too long ago. He's like, and he has one of those videos he posts where he had like 50 news anchors going, can you believe it's May? Can you believe it's my gosh, it's May. Can you believe it's May? And I'm like, you know what? It comes around once every year. Yeah, I can believe it.
Yeah.
But can you believe we've got the man, Dustin Dopirak from the Indy Star with us. Now on permanent vacation as the Pacers season is over. He does nothing every day, gets to sit around and put his feet up and do nothing, right?
No, but even the time coming up that it's going to be less. What am I trying to say here? Less Indy Star work. There will be more work around the house. So we're already getting jumping into that, doing some cutting the grass, cleaning the house, doing all the things.
Trust me, catching up. I had like 47 straight days that I worked, and the first day off, I had a stack of laundry this high, and I'm like, I'm not doing laundry today. I'm worn out and just trying to catch back up to the normalcy of life. I don't think people understand those things that you can do once a week on a Saturday. That doesn't happen for weeks at a time.
Yeah. Yeah, no, the playoff run was like that. It was just one thing stacked on top of the other. And so it was like, when are you going to, you have to take time out. Like, when are you going to cut the grass? When are you going to get a haircut? When are you going to, do laundry? Like all that kind of stuff. It's like that stuff, it does pile up. And then you're like, oh God. And then the season end, like with this, it was just like, you're so deep into it. And then it comes to a screeching halt and it's just over. And you're like, okay, now you got it, like end of season stuff. And then you pass, you're like, oh, wow, this is now what's sitting in front of you. It's, like a whole room full of laundry and everything like that. So it's just been catching up with that. But it's nice to do that. You're like, oh, this is what it likes to have my closet look like it's supposed to look, how about that? So.
Yeah. We don't often talk about the WNBA, but the WNBA is making a little noise, but
sure
not in a good way. And I was talking about, I'm a little surprised by what appears to be a bunch of petty jealousy of new stars, whether it's Caitlin Clark or even Angel Reese. I saw someone say that she was, and I don't know this to be true, but was she knocked down and choked or something? Did that really happen?
I didn't see anyone knocked down and choked. I mean, so Caitlin was not. I mean, you saw what happened to Caitlin, obviously. I mean, that's everywhere.
And how do they call that a common foul on the court, man?
I don't know. I mean, I like
problem.
Yeah, I don't know. Obviously, as is the case with everything, it's like, what did you see live? I didn't see that Angel Reese got chokeslammed. Maybe she did. I did not see that, and maybe there should be. No, I mean, okay. Anyway, I think, there's a lot going on, and there's a lot that's being worked through, I guess. I understand. So, like, also, we don't really know how to handle, or we're not really prepped for the idea of women getting beating each other up, I guess, for lack of a better term. Just the idea that I've just seen this a couple places that you got to get used to the idea that they're really competitive. They're not any less competitive than men are. It's different.
And they're pro players that they think that, hey, bring it. That's fine if you're all this. Bring it.
Mm-hmm. Right. No, I mean, you do. I was just looking through a thread today, and you have to remember, they beat up. The Pistons beat the living heck out of Michael Jordan, beat the snot out of him, and so there has been through various points of the NBA of, well, okay, we're just going to beat you up. We're going to physically beat you up. That's how we're going to test your mettle. And, to become what Michael became, Michael needed years in the weight room. He was skinny. You remember he was really skinny when he came out. And you're still talking about a time in the 80s where weight training was only kind of a thing. And especially for, basketball and even baseball, it was viewed as you're going to cost yourself some elasticity of your body if you do a lot of weight training, and you're going to be sort of tight and you're not going to be as athletic. And so it took a while for weight training to catch up to basketball and baseball. But Jordan was one of the ones that realized, I really got to do this because the Pistons are just going to beat the crap out of me otherwise. And so you got to remember that happened. So it's not, we're not necessarily looking at something so much different. And, no one, for obvious reasons, Caitlin Clark is not supposed to, doesn't have to be allowed to just come in the WNBA and take it over. But, you do have an adjustment for everybody when that happens. When there seem to be focusing her eyes on, just making it harder for her. I've seen a lot of criticism about, why didn't one of her teammates step up? And I can see how there's a lot of just dynamics at play there that I don't want to dive into and say, well, everybody should have gone and tried to beat Kennedy Carter up. Okay. All right. How much does that go against in terms of, how these women were brought up, in terms of whether they're supposed to go fight somebody, and so like I see it with the Pacers. Like when somebody comes after Tyrese Halliburton, James Johnson knows its job to stand up on the bench, kind of puff his chest out and say, hey, like, I don't know if you forgot, but I'm the most feared player in this league as far as who you don't want to fight. So leave him alone. And it goes away. I mean, like twice in the playoffs, James Johnson just stood up and said, hey, everybody remember I'm James Johnson. And that was the end of it. But it's like, okay, that's like, like obviously that's years and years and years of it being, noted to be, I guess, okay for somebody to be that guy. It's not the same dynamics you're working through as far as what goes on the women's side, but there's just a lot happening there, and like I just sort of am first I guess cautioning everybody not to freak out about it, but to examine it in the same way. So like obviously I'm not covering that team. I'm not there. I'm not seeing those dynamics at play on a daily basis. But it's a fascinating kind of storyline, but I just sort of hope everybody doesn't sort of jump to conclusions on what everybody should and shouldn't do, how it should or shouldn't be handled. Because I mean, look, let's face it, a lot of people who have not cared about the WNBA suddenly care about the WNBA. And like it's like this game has been going on for a long time.
And that's good for the WNBA.
It is good for the WNBA, but I'm saying like there is what happens in that case is a lot of people come in and start talking about how things are should or shouldn't be done that haven't been a part of it for a long time. And so like there's just some dimension there, and it's just like, I mean, like for one thing, I mean, I think one of the baseline underlying things was the league has been good for a while, and like I think everybody kind of had this vision that Caitlin Clark was like this phenomenon that was so far beyond what was in the league. And that wasn't the case. I mean, she's a terrific player, and I'm not trying to like downplay what she accomplished in college, but like, I mean, I was looking there saying, okay, like, well, Brianna Stewart and like Aja Wilson are not going to like let this girl like come into the league and take it over. Like the league is not as ripe. Like, when you look at sort of what Magic and Larry did for the NBA, the WNBA is not as ripe for takeover as the NBA was at that point. Like if you look at, who's going to be considered all-time greats, there are a lot more in the WNBA now than were in the NBA then. If you look at kind of rosters in like the year before Magic and Larry joined, it's like Julius Erving, George Gervin, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, and then you gotta like, it's not easy. Like Moses Malone, and then I don't know who else. Basically, like off the top of my head, like Dan Issel. Like you're looking at like 8 to 10 Hall of Famers were in the league at that point. Like it's not like if you're looking at comparison of talent, if you're looking at like kind of rise and fall of where like the best players played, like 1979-80 is like kind of a relatively low point. This is not the case in WNBA. Like right now it's loaded, and it was loaded before Caitlin Clark got there. So I think there is a lot happening in terms of like, okay, like this woman is elevating the visibility, but like it's not like she is so far above and beyond what was already in the league as far as talent wise was concerned.
Oh, absolutely.
So that makes for an interesting dynamic. And so like you're kind of, everyone's sort of expecting her to come in and own the league. And it was like, that was not going to be the case. Because again, like there's just a lot of really good talent. I'm sure there's a lot of really good talent. It's like, hey, why, okay, like she's really good, but like I'm really good. And I was really good coming out of college. So like, why is this happening now? And so, I don't know. I mean, there's a lot going on, but obviously some of the stuff that happened, that what Kennedy Carter did, that should be a flagrant, like just blatantly was a flagrant, purposely went out and just chucked her. And that's a foul. That's a flagrant foul.
Yeah, especially since she had some words for right before it happened.
Right. And I don't know if Caitlin said something too. And like Caitlin Clark's killer, man, like let's just, that is a competitive person, like we're not talking about somebody who, she's not dainty by any means. Like she is tough, and like she wants to beat you and beat you bad.
But she still is probably not at the level physically yet that she needs to be against the players that have been playing this league for a decade.
Sure. And the other thing is like they are, like the league has not done the Fever favors as far as like they're like to take advantage of this wave. They're getting them out on TV all the time. And like I just heard the discussion on the game the other day is like they haven't practiced in a while because they've had games stacked. I mean, like I don't know how often they do back-to-backs, but I mean obviously they just did a back-to-back this weekend where they had a home road back-to-back where they had the Sky at home on Saturday. And were on the road at Liberty on Sunday, and they had to play right back to back. And again, you're talking about like they didn't really get a chance to downshift after the regular like the college season. I mean, like it's sort of like you're at this point probably getting as much space as baseball players get. If they play a college season and then go get drafted and play professionally, but you're doing it on the highest level. Like you don't have short season A ball to go play, or rookie league ball to go play. Like you go straight from, you get drafted, you're in the league, and you have basically 6 weeks between, your champion, NCAA championship game and, your WNBA opener. Like you're running right into it. So like none of this stuff is easy, and it's definitely like, they are riding the wave with it, but like they definitely put a lot on her plate to be like, okay, like be on television all the time, immediately. And we're going to get all these games on but we're going to like have you play, some of the toughest teams you're going to play at the beginning of the year. Like right as they got to playing, at like game 2, they're playing the New York Liberty. And you're looking at like Brianna Stewart, Sabrina Ionescu, Jonquel Jones, like that group's loaded. Absolutely loaded. And so it's like, all right, yeah, like it was a rough night for them, and it was a rough night for them last night. They got the Liberty again and they got pounded, but like the Liberty are loaded, Sabrina Ionescu was the biggest thing since Slice Bread got drafted a couple years ago, and she's terrific now. Like she needed a couple years, to get right, and now she's tremendous, and then Brianna Stewart might, either her or Aja Wilson's the best player in the league, depending on how you look at it. So
I compared her with Mackenzie Mbako coming in last year to Indiana, and everyone thinking, well, he's going to come in and just set things on fire. Yeah. Well, it took him basically the bulk of the season to find his rhythm, but when he did, he found his rhythm. Being a freshman going through a new level, it's a level up, man. And so hopefully fans will expect him to pick up where he left off, and he probably should. But he had to go through a lot virtually the entire season to find that rhythm. And we'll see about that. But we've got more coming up. A great point by Bill before I get away is she did get away with a lot in college. And so she's used to that. And this is a whole different thing. But talking about Caitlin Clark. But we've got lots more coming up. Dustin Dopirak with the Indy Star with us. We're back with more, brought to you by Boost Fundraiser. Know a team or group needing a fundraiser? Boost Fundraising raises more money faster and offers the most unique and user-friendly online fundraiser in the nation. Your team receives personalized fundraising pages for each team member, free team-branded promo gifts shipped to each donor. Boost Fundraising does it all, whether it's sports teams, marching bands, charity causes, or community groups. Go to boostfundraising.com and be sure to enter the promo code COYLE, COYLE, to receive a discounted fundraiser. More with Dustin Dopirak right after this.
We'll be right back for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Formerly. Boy, that Caitlin Clark got a hefty discussion going this morning.
I'll bet it did.
The Fever need Charles Oakley.
Boy, oh man, that is a place that concerns me because it's just like, all right, like we get, like I feel like that conversation can take some dark turns. As far as drafting an enforcer and how everybody feels about the idea of a female enforcer, like, and all that kind of thing. So I don't know, but I mean, like on some level you do, but I don't know how, like, it's an interesting deal.
Well, it would draw more attention probably. I mean, you think back to to maybe one of the most hated guys in the history of the NBA, Detroit's
Bill Lambier.
Bill Lambier. I mean, Bird just absolutely I probably still hates him. And there's that did he clothesline? I can't remember if he clotheslined Bird or I think he clotheslined Bird one time in the lane. They're down on the floor and he's got him in a headlock and it's just an all-out brawl. I don't think a technical foul was given in that. Then there's another great picture of Bird and Dr. J. Bird's got his hands, or they both have their hands around each other's throats.
Maybe.
That's an iconic photo. And Bird and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar got into one. I mean, there were just some great fights over the course of the NBA, and there were no technical fouls even given. That's the funny thing. No technical fouls.
Yeah, I think, there's also the thing though, like we look back on that and think it's great, but if we did it now, like it wouldn't be,
different era. Oh, it's holy crap. You may be looking at jail charges.
And I think, you forget like Malice at the Palace, like the undertones of that discussion were really bad, like it wasn't just, because like you do have to consider the race element of it in that, like you start hearing certain terms that come out, around stuff like that. And it's like, it's sort of funny in retrospect, but it's not in the moment. And it gets talked about like it's not like you don't view basketball fights aren't viewed the same way when it really gets out of hand. Like when it really gets out of hand.
10 seconds, guys.
Yeah.
Here we go.
For 36 months on a 2023 Honda Ridgeline. Go to AndyMooreHonda.com and get more to your door.
This segment is brought to you by the Fresh Fork in Bloomington. Welcome back to Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Hey, welcome back to Indiana Sports Beat Radio here on this beautiful Monday at the beginning of June. Brought to you by the Fresh Fork, where you can enjoy healthy, delicious meals at home without the hassle with the Fresh Fork. Chef-curated meals, ready-made, delivered right to your doorstep. Proudly fueling IU athletes and now available to you with a menu that's always fresh and diverse. From hearty proteins to fresh salads, the Fresh Fork empowers you to make better food choices without compromising. Order online and let the Fresh Fork help transform your lifestyle for a healthier way of living today at thefreshforkonline.com. Use promo code radio20 for $20 off your first order. That stuff is delicious and incredible, by the way. And make sure you take care of our sponsors and use our sponsors, because that's how we're able to bring you this content each and every day. Joined by Dustin Dopirak from the Indy Star, who has spent, it seems like, a lifetime over the last season alone covering the NBA, as the Pacers season went extraordinarily long into the conference finals, and which that was beyond expected for this young team.
Sure.
It was kind of a bonus. There was no doubt that it was helped with a Milwaukee team that was not up to par health-wise, but they played well and very well, and they were able to get to the conference finals before things went awry for the Pacers with Tyrese Halliburton getting hurt. But I'm not sure that would have mattered. I'm not saying that they would have gotten swept, but probably not going to win that series. The Celtics are pretty strong and expected to be in the finals, but this has to be just a great experience for this young Pacers team.
Yeah, no, exactly. I mean, I kind of said it from the beginning, from them it was just so important for them to get in the playoffs, just to experience and get a sense of what was required. So both from an organizational standpoint, they could get a sense of what they didn't have. And from a player perspective, they would get a sense of, okay, like this is what's required to win at this level. Like this is what you have to focus on. Like this is how, because some of the guys have been here before, just like talked about how every possession matters. You could make a mistake in the first quarter that ends up burning you in the fourth quarter. They learned a lot about just how important rebounding can be and the degree to which you can get truly busted if you lose badly on the glass. That one of their probably worst performance in the playoffs was Game 5 against New York when they got beat 53-29 on the boards and they gave up 20 offensive rebounds, and the second chance points were just crazy, but also the shots were nuts. Like the Knicks took 101 field goals, the Pacers took 72, and that's wild. Like that is just a crazy differential. And they learned a lot. And so they were also able to continually get knocked down and get back up again. Really had a deer in the headlights moment in Game 1 against the Bucks. Came back and won Game 2 in Milwaukee. Got when they had the Bucks on the brink in Milwaukee. They were up 3-1 going into Game 5, and they got dusted in Game 5. And like they learned about, okay, like this is what a team's like when it's desperate. Then they were in situations in New York where they were the team that was down 3-2, and they had to find a way to rally back, and they came back to Gainbridge, won that game, and then went to Game 7 and won that game. And then, you obviously go to Boston and play the best team in the league, and you get beat 4 times, and 3 times, you've got a close game. I mean, I think they lost 3 of the 4 games by a grand total of 11 points. Game 2 when Halliburton got hurt, and they pulled him out, and obviously Carlisle decided to kind of what I termed it a tactical retreat. It's basically like he, spent the fourth quarter trying to figure out, all right, who can I play the rest of this series if I don't have Halliburton? But that was the only game where they really got handled. Ultimately there were a lot of great, learning lessons for them to go forward with a young team. I mean, they started 3 guys that were 24 years old. The other 2 were, Miles Turner, who's 28, and Pascal Siakam, who's 30. And then you've got, guys coming off the bench that are young. Rookie, Ben Shepherd had a lot to do, basically got a lot of playing time in the series. He's, 22, 23. Obi Toppin's 26. Obviously, he got a lot of time, certainly TJ McConnell. But, a lot of guys under, 25, 26 or under, got some experience there and got to learn a lot. I mean, to your point, you can't presume that, all right, you just put them in the Eastern Conference Finals next year and they take the next step. I mean, they're going to have to work hard to get back there. A lot of other teams are going to come back reloaded. I thought the Milwaukee team they beat was still really good. I mean, like, I think if you take a team, that has Damian Lillard, Chris Middleton, Bobby Portis, Brooke Lopez, Malik Beasley as the starting 5, Patrick Beverly, that team still makes the playoffs. It's just not a championship contender like it is when you put Giannis on that group. Same thing with the Knicks. Obviously losing OG Anunoby was tough, but like a team with Jalen Brunson and Josh Hart and Dante DiVincenzo and Deuce McBride and Isaiah Hartenstein is a good team. Like I keep seeing the word hospital team thrown around. Like they didn't play the Knicks JVs. There's all-stars out there that they had to beat. Like it's not like that's not a legitimate team. But obviously, if you give the Knicks Julius Randle and OG Anunoby, and you bring Mitchell Robinson and Bogan Bogdanovic off the bench, you have a much better team. You have much better depth. Like that team is a lot harder to beat, and obviously took the Pacers 7 games to beat the team they did have to play. So there's something to be said for you probably don't get that far if you're going against these guys in full strength. They didn't beat nobodies, but still it's a different team. Philadelphia will be retooled certainly with Joel Embiid. If he makes it through a full healthy season, they're probably going to go re-sign Tyrese Maxey, and then they're going to have a lot of roster spots and money to play with. Philly's going to make a run. Boston's obviously going to get whatever they get out of this. They might win a championship and come back, loaded for bear to win another one. It's not going to be as easy to get to the East Finals, again, presuming everybody gets through the playoffs healthy next year as it is this year. So there's going to have to be understanding that the bar is going to be raised. But I think they know that. And, again, like it's just, they just had to get in and get to be on this side of it, to get to be a team that's a playoff team with playoff experience, as opposed to a team that's playing out of the lottery. And again, just big steps were made for them as a franchise this year.
I know that you're not following college basketball, and there's nothing really going on right now other than, say, at Indiana, all the players should be on campus, and the summer camp starts. Mm-hmm. This is maybe the most unique team Indiana has had. I guess I can't say ever, because that's too much, but certainly not what fans are accustomed to, because you've got a ton of new faces that are in, that are not freshmen, that have come in from different places, whether it's Washington State, Stanford, Arizona, even Bellarmine, and Hatton, who played for a great coach in Scotty Ballard down at Bellarmine, who recently moved from Division II to Division I. But don't let that fool you, because Scotty has a great eye for talent, and always has. But Indiana now, with so many different pieces that should help them in every area, and everybody's guessing at starting lineups and this, and I'm like, how the hell can you guess at a starting lineup?
Can't even begin. Yeah,
seeing something. I don't know if, first of all, is Trey Galloway going to be able to start the season healthy, because he's still recovering from his minor surgery? How much is that going to impact his ability to flawlessly step into the role needed? You've got two brand new guards that could be starters in Kanan Carlisle and Miles Rice. Do they run together? Do you separate them? Is Mike Whitson going to stick with his two bigs routine and put Renew and Ballo on the floor at the same time? You've got a freshman and Bryson Tucker, a 5-star freshman. Is he ready to? Will he be ready to step in and do something that Malik or Mackenzie Mbako was not able to do as a freshman? So again, that's asking a lot. But now you've also got Ja'Kai Newton, who has been sitting on a bench for 2 years, basically, that we don't know much about. He's an X factor. And you're adding a Luke Goody, who is a known shooter. Does Gabe Cupps take a step up? Because if not, I don't see much of a role if he doesn't. So there are so many questions without answers, that everything that anybody says about this squad right now is a guess, although they are extraordinarily talented in all of these positions.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's probably gotta be the fun thing. There's something to guess about. Obviously this, you're not going to not have that in terms of people just talking about it and just trying to guess, but like that I guess makes it entertaining, as you look at it, it's like I have no idea who they're going to start. Like, when I look at this roster and just get it, certainly, obviously I watch them from a distance, this year in terms of who they had and whatnot. And I don't know too much about these guys. I haven't seen them in AAU ball. I haven't been, in that world in a while. And I didn't watch a lot of Kanan Carlisle or Miles Rice. I didn't watch that much Pac-12 basketball this year. Saw a little bit of Luke Goody. Seen a good amount of Omar Ballo over the last couple years. Have a pretty good sense of what he's about. But all the same, like you don't know how it's going to shake out, and like it is trying to figure out how to. There's a lot of talent there, and trying to make it work is going to be interesting, and trying to create a system that works is going to be interesting. And so it's the biggest collection of talent that he's got. The top to bottom. There's a lot of guys that can contribute, and so it's like, okay, well, what does this look like? I mean, like, to your point, I mean, like, okay, I have a hard time imagining that he's not going to play Ballo and Renew together. Because I feel like ultimately Woodson's deal is you play the best 5 guys, and whoever the best 5 guys are, you figure out what to do after that. And so I have a hard time thinking that he's going to determine that Renew and Ballo are not the best 5 guys. There's absolutely an argument to be made to separate them. and to say, okay, like bring Renew off the bench or bring Ballo off the bench and say, okay, like you're going to have sort of a second unit, and they're going to operate differently as centers. There's definitely an argument for that. What does that look like? How do you, space out those minutes? And so, I feel like you got to have them on the floor together for a while, because I don't think you're going to say them 20 and 20. Like, are you going to play your two best players 20 and 20? That's a tough scenario there. Or are you playing one of them 25 and the other one 15? Are you going to play a guy, either of Ballo or Renew's talent for only 15 minutes? I don't see that. So we'll see. I imagine there's going to be some overlap there. They'll probably play off of each other. You're also going to figure, in back row probably, is best as a power forward. He's obviously going to have to play some 3 and some 4, you imagine. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot to work in. Where does Bryson Tucker get his minutes? How much do you even get out of Langdon Hatton? That seems like a guy who can help you, but like where and when? Like you have just a lot of guard options, and you don't know what's going to work out there. Again, like, where does Ja'Kai Newton get an opportunity? Where does Bryson Tucker get an opportunity? Where does Gabe Cupps get an opportunity? Are you starting Rice and Carlisle? Is that how it works? There's a lot going on, but like what has to happen obviously is they go play it out. They go have a camp. You figure out, through the course of camp, who are really your guys, and so we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, for those of you that think that Woodson has said that's what that running 2 bigs is what he's going to do, that's not the case. He said he will look at it. He said that at Huber's just the other day. And he has to, because there are just too many options. And like Dustin just said, I mean, playing Renew and Ballo at the same time, I can definitely see the benefits, because that's tough to defend. But on the other hand,
it calls Spain.
Yeah. But on the other hand, if you could have just somebody like that in there nonstop in the game, again, also difficult to defend, which you could do both of. And it depends on different things. It depends on, can Hatton do something? Can he come in, because he's the guy that can step out and shoot behind the 3 at 6'10", which is unusual. But how successful at this level, we have to wait and see. Do you run a 4 and 1 with 2 guards and a 3 and a 4 that are just smaller, a small ball type lineup? If you have the shooters, man, well, that's another option. There are just so many different options for him if the talent comes together. That's the question.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And it's not, I mean, the tough part is, like, there are only 40 minutes in a basketball game and there's only one ball, and you are reminded that that's kind of how it works sometimes, is that you think, you look at all this, like you can do all this. Well, you can't actually play them all. It's not like, okay, you have 12 guys that you can use, and that's a benefit, but you can only play 5 of them at once. And so it isn't always easy to determine, okay, like, how are you going to do this? Like, you could technically do something different every game if you want to, technically, but it doesn't really work that way in terms of creating cohesiveness and coherence and having a sense of what you want to do and having a system. But no, he does have options. I mean, like, he can play smaller. He can, have a 4 that spaces the floor. He has those options. He can play big. But there's a lot of not easy decisions. I guess, like, what he's created is a scenario where, all right, you compete and you play it out. And, that's it. He puts it on him to make the decisions in the moment in terms of what comes through, in terms of who his better players really are.
Last week, the NCAA reached a settlement, or approved a settlement, I should say, with in regards to a group of suits, including the House versus the NCAA, that will, in essence, pay athletes going back to 2016. Man, that's pretty cool. If you're an athlete from 2016, 17, 18, 19, and 20, you're like, woo,
sure,
check, baby.
Yeah.
Residuals. And found money, and which has got to be cool for them. There's also they have, quote unquote, reached an agreement and in the multi-transfer athlete suit with states now, which they're 0 and what? They're 0-4. for whatever. Have they ever, won a lawsuit? It's unbelievable for an organization to be just beat down in every way possible. Every time they get sued, they lose. But sometimes they take on, and I've mentioned this, and I don't want to beat this dead horse. The two players from the Ivy League who did not get a fifth year because the NCAA did not grant fifth years to Ivy League school athletes because the Ivy League canceled play the year of COVID, which is just stupid. How do you not give a fifth year to guys that didn't get to play, but you give it to those who did get to play?
Right. Yeah. No, I mean, I think it was bizarre. But like to your point about losing, I mean, like what the tough scenario has always been this is that we as a nation, basically as a society, tried to make it so that like all the rest of the rules that we had didn't apply to college sports. And like we just, rather than like establishing that in some way, creating some kind of legal structure that propped that up, or at least kind of came to some kind of like conclusion as to why that should be and justification as to why that should be, and come up with some level of legal coherence about this and saying like this should be different because this, and this is why we're going to do it this way, and we got to operate this way. Like we just took all the rules that we have for the rest of this country and threw them on their head when it came to college sports. I mean, like really when it came to, like it's a capitalist society, like you were always supposed to be able to make whatever money you're supposed to make. Like that's the basic idea of it, is that there's no limit as to what you can achieve and the money that you can make. And then we said, except for this, but like we didn't really create rules for that, like we just like we just said so. And so it's like when you brought any of it to legal scrutiny, it was always going to lose. Like it's just they couldn't be in a position to be sued, because if they were going to be sued, they were always going to lose. If you look at every other precedent we have, for like just the law in terms of like what you're allowed to make, what you're not allowed to make, what an employee is, like you couldn't. It was never going to stand up to legal scrutiny. Once you put it in a courtroom, it was always going to crumble. And so like what they had to do, like. They couldn't win those cases. They had to keep them out of courtrooms, and there wasn't enough done to make sure that didn't happen. And so, like there had to be a sense of, okay, well, if you're going to create $1 billion business and ultimately the product is the guys that are running out there, like that's what you're selling. Okay. And those guys don't get paid. Then, all right, how does that work when you're talking about a capitalist society? Like when everybody else gets paid for their labor, like how is it that this $1 billion business that people don't get paid for their labor? And once you started chipping away at that, it crumbled. And so if you were going to make it so that these people were a different class, you had to create a legal structure to make that happen. You had to create justification to create that legal structure, and it was never done. So once you put it in a courtroom, it was going to lose. So like so we're just reaping that like nobody really came to that understanding that like, no, this doesn't stand up in court. Of course it doesn't stand up in court. So if you're going to justify that they have to be a different class of employee, that it's got to be something different, like you have to create a legal structure that makes it work, and they never did. And so it's losing.
With all the change, where do you think we end up? And
couldn't even guess.
And that's scary, because sure. I believe you. Whether it's conferences, everyone talks about, we're going to end up having this or that, and it's going to be different for football than it is for basketball.
Sure,
without question, I think. And that's, I don't know if that's right or wrong, to be honest with you, because they're two animals. They're two different animals. One brings in a ton more money than the other, which is actually surprising to me. With as much basketball as there is that's played and watched, there seems like there's so much more content that I'm like, right. How the hell does basketball not make as much money? The NCAA tournament,
supply and demand. It's just like the relatively low supply of football and the high demand of it allows you to charge a crazy amount. It's just like football is just a different animal for what we consume as a society, because like you can watch all the football, like you can't watch all the basketball, you can't watch all the baseball, like at some point you have to function and do something else with your life, like you can't have every night that you need to watch all the basketball that there is to be watched. Football, you just put aside your Saturdays and your Sundays, and then you go on and do something else. And so you can follow a team at every turn. You can obsess about it, and think about it all week. But you can't. You can watch every game, and you can invest in every game. And so like that's always going to drive a little bit more, because it's the big event. And when it comes to college, look, how many big events are built around football games? Homecoming, the whole bit, it's just like all of those are massive events. It's a big deal. It's still a big deal at Indiana, even if football is definitely the lesser sport in terms of its, historical success. You still plot around a lot of things around football games. Penn State, we plotted everything around football games. Those were the
Ohio State, Alabama, all the Southeastern Conference, every Southeastern Conference team.
Exactly.
But Michigan State, I mean, you go up there. If you go to a Michigan State game, trust me, the tailgating is freaking everywhere.
Yeah.
A Michigan game, an Ohio State game, a Nebraska game. I mean, there are an Iowa game, a Wisconsin game. There are tons in the Big Ten. It's just not as much as the SEC.
You're doubling the size of cities for a day.
Oh,
like on every Saturday, the size of cities doubles. It's insane. And so obviously that drives the train, and so that drives everything. And so again, because you can fit 100,000 people in to watch a football game, it begs the question of what you do with the people that are down there playing in front of them. If you can charge every one of those people $100 to be in that building, and $100,000, then you're talking about 10 million gross a day, right? 100,000 people, $100 a game, $100 a ticket is $10 million. So even if you only charge
ain't lying.
What's up?
The math doesn't lie.
So $10 million a game. And so if people are paying you $10 million a game to go, before you get into parking and everything else, to go watch the guys down there, you always have to, okay, well, how are they not employees? And so once you get down that track, I don't know where we end. And so there almost has to be a complete and total reset and say, what do we want college sports to be? How can we legally justify that? And what do we make this look like so that it's sensible? It's almost got to be a complete restructure and start over and say, we're going to have these rules, and they're just going to be these rules. We're not going to change them from this point forward. So yeah, I mean, it is where it is, because again, a lot of it did not have legal, a legal leg to stand on for a lot of years. And then finally everybody took it to court and it lost. And so we don't know where any of this ends.
Yeah, I'd like to know. It'd be interesting, especially for the larger sport or all sports, to figure out the hours that are put into that sport by the athlete, and compare that to what everything else is. But what's up next for you, Dustin?
Well, we got the obviously got free agency, the draft, still kind of working through some end of season stuff. Kind of looking forward and saying, okay, what do they do with this roster from here? What are their next steps in terms of building this group? Looking back at who they do have coming back, what those guys achieved. So you're going to still see a bunch of stories from me, but they got draft workouts. Lance Jones from Purdue is going to be in town on Tuesday. I don't think, obviously they don't have a pick until 36. So usually the Pacers tend to bring in, the IU Purdue superstars, just to kind of give them a run, even if they're not going to pick them, or even if those guys aren't going to be on the board. But Edey and Ware are probably going to be off the board so far beyond when they pick that I don't think you're going to see those guys in Indy this year. I'd be surprised if you did. I guess there's a non-zero chance, but I'd be surprised if either one of those come in, because I think both of those guys can be in the first round. So we'll see what they do there. It's just going to be interesting to see how they try to work anybody in. I think anybody they pick is not going to be a rotation guy. But they could play their way in. injuries could happen. Ben Shepherd wasn't supposed to be a rotation guy. He ended up a rotation guy. So stuff happens over the course of the NBA season. I think they're going to try to get somebody who's really plug and play and really experienced. So we'll just see how the Pacers rebuild themselves, and I'll be following that.
And then we've got TBT, NBA Summer League, which has become
a big deal.
I don't want to say must-watch TV, but it has become
it's worth
something.
It's worth watching TV. It's something like we're talking about July basketball past the NBA Finals. Like, you don't have to watch it, but
there's always a topic. There's always something that you want to watch it for, whether it's a local player or whatever. There's usually always somebody.
Yeah, no, I mean, you'll see, obviously if you're watching the Pacers, I have to presume that Jarris Walker will be there. So you get more of a sense of, how he's progressed through a year. I mean, last year they played Andrew Nembhard. And, they let some guys who'd had some real, who had got some real work, go down there and play. And obviously Nembhard's not going to go back. And I don't presume Ben Shepherd will go back. I guess there's a non-zero chance that they ask Shepherd to play. Probably not after he got playoff minutes, but you never know. So you'll probably see Oscar Tshiebwe down there again. Again, you'll see whoever they pick, but I presume you'll see Jarris Walker a lot to see what he does. I don't think Golden State will send Trace Jackson Davis back, but you'll probably see Jalen Hood-Schifino if he's healthy enough to play.
He's struggling to stay in the NBA. He's kind of on that border. You think?
No, he just got hurt. He was hurt all year. Hood-Schifino was hurt. I think they like a lot about him. I really liked what he did in Summer League last year. I was super impressed. He just wasn't healthy all year. And so I don't think they're going to rush to cut him. I think they like him. I don't know. I just don't know where he stands. He just barely got a chance to play. So you really, if you're the Lakers, you don't know what you have in Hood-Schifino yet. So that's going to be kind of the start of them getting a better sense of it, of giving him some minutes. And letting him play, and then getting an idea of what they really have. So I don't think he's on the brink of getting cut or anything like that. He just wasn't healthy all year. I can't even remember what all he had. I think there was at least two major injuries he was working through, and I could look it up as Basketball Reference page. I don't know if he played 10 games. So
I'd hate to see him draft Bronny James to replace him.
He's not getting replaced. Here's the one thing I'll say, about what Bronny's not going to come in and replace a first-round pick.
The fact that he's coming in, period, is a joke. Let's be honest.
I don't want to call it a joke. First off, there's a lot of guys in the league that don't play. So
But did those guys deserve to get drafted?
What's that?
Did those guys deserve to get drafted? There's a difference.
Yes, but there's a lot of pieces to it. First off, you got to remember, the last 10 or 12 picks in the draft, a not small number of those, they're not even bringing to the country. So, roster dynamics are weird, especially when you're getting down to, players 11 through 15, because you have a 10-man rotation usually throughout the season where you've got 2 units. And so the 5 guys past that unit, usually 1 or 2 of them, end up sliding in with injuries or somebody being out for a couple games. Guys 13, 14, 15. James Johnson barely played all year. James Johnson was there to make sure nobody messed with anybody, And so it's was that, and he made his money. He absolutely made his money. He was absolutely worth every penny they gave him. So, Giannis, Giannis's brother's on a team. How much does Giannis's brother play? What's he there for? So it's Bronny James taking up a roster spot for the Lakers is not going to be the worst thing that ever happened. If that just happens, I hate to see it happen
because if he was not the son of LeBron James, this doesn't happen.
It probably doesn't, but it's if Thanasis Antetokounmpo isn't the brother of Giannis Antetokounmpo, then he's probably not in the league. So, but it's just there's a few of those, you do. You do get in this league. Sometimes you get to stay in this league because you're a good dude, not because you're any good. Sometimes good teammate. How many years did Adonis Haslam get by being a good dude, by being a guy everybody likes? By being a wise elder statesman, at the end of the day, the guys that barely play, you need stuff like that. So it's if Bronny James is in the league to make LeBron James happy. Is that going to be the biggest travesty that ever happened? No. My issue more with it is I think he can be more than that. And that's the issue that concerns me more. Like, I don't like, it's not the biggest sin that ever happened if there's a roster spot, just created so that LeBron gets to play with his son. Like, that's not the worst tragedy that ever happened if like one roster spot in the entire league is taken up from that. But the question is that ultimately holding him back from being a better player than he could be? And I wonder if it is. I mean, they're saying they're not going to have him on a two-way. He could use being on a two-way. Like, there's no, we shame two-way guys to go in the G League. Like, there's no shame in playing that league, and you do get better. Jarris Walker's better because he went and played in the G League. Ben Shepherd got better because he went and played in the G League. Yeah, you're playing in like Westchester or, wherever else, but like, it's good pump, man. I mean, like, you don't like, you grow up in that league. And so, Bronny probably should get time in the G League. Bronny probably should play 2 more years of college, to get to be a good player. Like, I'm not going to be, like the guy who's not going to get a spot because Bronny has one. Like, you don't even know who that is, first off, like, or what that even looks like. And so, like, I'm not going to look at that as the biggest tragedy of, oh, he took somebody's spot or whatever. Okay, well, there's other people taking other people's spots. But it's a bigger question: is he going to be the best player? Is that going to make him the best player that he could be? And I doubt it.
Dustin Dopirak from the Indy Star. We appreciate you, my friend, as always.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, Jim.
You betcha. Have a great day. Look forward to talking to you next week. We've got more coming up here on Indiana Sports Beat Radio, brought to you by Hoosier Hanks East, located off College Mall Road in Bloomington. If you're here to visit the kids, or if you're already in Bloomington, Hoosier Hanks East has an array of custom pizzas, straws, baked wings, mac bowls, fresh salads, and so much more. You can dine in, carry out, or have Hank cater your next event. Hoosier Hanks East is a great place to watch the games or gather with your team after the game and use their exclusive party room for your next gathering. Order online at HoosierHanks.com or visit them at 1285 South College Mall Road. Back with more right after this.
We'll be right back for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
In the market, we're going to have like 1 minute.
You have 2 minutes.
Let's see.
One thing you haven't really mentioned is baseball. If you wanted to,
I mentioned.
Yeah, I guess you did briefly. Yeah, you did earlier in the first hour.
I'll mention that again.
Just to kind of.
Tomorrow is tomorrow normal with Mike?
It's Mike Cronick, and Travis said he would come on later in the week. I'm seeing if he wants to come on tomorrow since he couldn't come on today. So
let me see if I can get Devontae Green first.
I mean, I already sent him an email, but I can move him if Devontae Green decides he wants to come on.
Okay. And I got to work on Yogi Farrell. Yagi. It's hard not to say one more thing, but boy.
Oh, I know. The moment, I mean, you did it twice. I was like, man, we're never going to get out of this segment.
It's an extra 3 minutes.
I know. And it's not a knock on them, but both.
No, it's because of information. It's the information.
Yeah, they can just go.
Well, there's a difference between Zach seems to go. It's like he gets lost a lot in his thoughts. I've got to get.
Yeah, I get what you're saying.
All right, Mike Cronick, and I'm gonna see about Devontae. We texted the other day.
There you go.
How about? And then afterwards, I need to figure out everybody we have on this week because I can get some good guests.
There you go. We don't have any cancellations for now, but that doesn't mean we won't have any.
Well, even for besides cancellations of filling it in instead of just having the norm.
Yeah.
Yeah, Indiana baseball season comes to an end after they go 1-2 in the NCAA, giving up 17 stinking runs in those 2 games, man.
All right, here we go.
Cannot
This
give
will
up
be
17
quick. Quick Indiana baseball if you want to mention it again, and then just get out at that point.
Yep.
So here we go.
Meal at home, or pick out a tomahawk steak or a grouper filet and enjoy it cooked to perfection in Chop Shop Steakhouse. Chop Shop, Market and Table, a part of the Wild Food Group, is your butcher, baker, and fish house, no matter where you live.
This segment is brought to you by Bubba's 33 in Clarksville and Evansville. Pizza, burgers, beer. Welcome back to Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Hey, welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio on this Monday, getting your June and week started as well. It's beautiful. Man, this weather's been incredible. Hope it stays like that. Man, it's been an incredible day with Greg Rakestraw, Todd Leary, the shot father, Dustin Dopirak, from the Indy Star. Man, lots going on. Indiana baseball season has come to an end after going 1-2 over the weekend in the NCAA tournament. They had a great start with a win over Southern Miss, but that they could not keep up on that, unfortunately. After beating Southern Miss 10-4 in their first game, they then faced the Tennessee Volunteers, the number 1 overall seed, in which they battled in that game, but they had a big middle, and they gave up 12 runs to Tennessee, and they lose 12-6. Then in the following day, they take on Southern Miss again, and the team that they beat 10-4 the first time around just clobbers Indiana 15-3. They couldn't get the bats going, and Indiana gives up 17 or rather 27 runs. I can't count. I can't add. They give up 27 runs in 2 games, and you can't do that and expect to win. That's a lot. But the good season for Indiana as they make the NCAA tournament, and hopefully they can keep things going next year for Coach Jeff Mercer as they roll on. Looking forward to the rest of the week. Mike DeCourcy, of course, on tomorrow, and I'm going to work to get Devontae Green on, as well as Trent Sisley, guys like that. Try to talk to Mike Fox, the coach of Indiana Elite. As I'm telling you, I think that they have a hell of a chance of winning that 3SSB title. We may wait till they get a little bit closer to that, but that comes up here. I think that's next month, I believe. But so much going on. You got Yogi Ferrell, who was added to the Indiana team. Did we talk about that last week, John?
Yes.
Okay, I couldn't remember. But it's been a great day. I can't thank everybody enough. As I said, thanks to everybody that was on the show, Greg, Todd, and Dustin. Big thanks to John, the producer, as always, for keeping us between the white lines. And most importantly, thanks to each and every one of you. Without you, we have no reason to be here. Until tomorrow, I'm Jim Coyle. I will see you on the radio.
Thanks for listening to Indiana Sports Beat Radio. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube page for more clips and team coverage of Indiana basketball, football, and more. You can also find full episodes and tons of other content on thehoosier.com. We'll see you next time for another edition of Indiana Sports Beat Radio.